Okay, I'm gonna hit live.
Okay.
Go.
All the way live.
All the way live. It's not live at 11. It's can we even talk about that? Hi friends. Hi everybody. Here we are. Super sorry about Wednesday, but very, very relieved to be back in like stable environment where we know for certain we will have reception and be able to actually keep the podcast going. So thank you so much for hanging with us, you guys. I know it's a little frustrating. But you know, we're finalizing things, we're getting it together, and we won't have to do this again. And we'll not be taking any last minute trips to God knows where ever. So, hey, welcome to episode 2 of Can We Even Talk About That, guys?
Yes, here, we in there.
Seriously.
Okay, let me just make sure all my stuff is right. You know,
yeah.
Like you over there, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, my stuff right. Okay.
You should share this too. I don't think I tagged you properly in there.
Okay, of course.
I don't think I did. I'm so sorry.
Cool.
Something's got to be wrong, yo.
Wait. Okay, share now. Okay, let's make sure.
Hey, while we're waiting, I want to give a quick shout out to Sharon Hansen, who is a seamstress out here, and she fixed the straps on my dress so I can wear it again. It's way too cold to actually be wearing it, but I am anyway. So thank you, Sharon.
All right,
everybody's gonna see it though. Nice. All right, perfect.
We are episode 2 on Can We Even Talk About That? As Lisa has mentioned, like even since our last podcast, it seems like it's been like 3 months. You know,
it feels like it.
So true. I mean, Lisa's been out to, you know, she's basically went, you know, all the way south of, you know, freaking, you know, the country and back.
Literally in a 5-day period.
You know, we did a photo shoot.
That was the last calm moment I had, actually. Photo shoot and then driving for 5 days.
I believe it. But I before we even dive fully into, you know, this episode's topic, which is grassroots organizing, I just wanted to send a mighty thank you out to everybody who's been, you know, listening to the podcast, subscribing to the different platforms. The love is real. Thank y'all.
Yeah, dude, so much support.
We're just gonna get bigger and better. So, you know, we're just gonna blow up.
I know. Thank you for hanging with us, because this is gonna get better and like just more professional in the sense that the kinks will be worked out and we'll be doing a little better. Yeah, and shout out to my sister Alicia for the amazing pictures. Not just the amazing pictures, but like the amazing time. It was nice to sit there. We had good conversation with her and Anastasia. I'm very glad that we got to meet her. It was a really cool time. I'm excited to see what you do with all of those pictures and videos, actually. Because
first of all, there's bad pictures. But,
it took like 1,000, dude.
It's great though. It's great.
Great. So much to work with.
Better to have too many versus.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, hey, and one thing I wanted to do before we jump into this episode also is when I went back and watched the first podcast that we did on digital blackface, I realized that I personally, a lot of the information that I used in that podcast came from one specific YouTuber. Like when I went back and watched it, I'm like, man, and I did not give her a shout out. So Khadijah Mbawe had MBOWE, Khadijah MBOWE Mbawe on YouTube. She has a YouTube channel. She's an incredible YouTube blogger. And I did not mean to bite her, but ultimately when I went back and watched it, I'm like, man, I bet that girl a lot and I need to give her a shout out, because a lot of the things that I ended up talking about came directly from her YouTube channel. So if you thought that I was really smart and doing good, I am, but also I was very inspired by Khadijah and the information that she shared on her. So if you have a chance and you liked what I was talking about, you'll love her YouTube channel. So I suggest checking her out. I'm not trying to like bite. Old girl has a lot of really incredible points. She's very smart, cool channel. So respect. Check out her YouTube if you're into it. Right. I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up.
Good look. You know.
Yeah.
Little things we gotta get, you know, in the use of, but grassroots organizing.
Yeah, let's get in this.
You know, grassroots. Anybody who's cut grass, knows about the roots of grass. That junk
True.
goes deep,
Yes.
which is why,
Mhm.
grass keep coming back, and it really,
Mhm.
unless you like strip up like the top soil,
Right.
you really can't get rid of, a lot of different types of grasses, you know,
Right. Some of
and
them just gonna be there.
they're going to be there, and that's pretty much the how should I put it? That's pretty much the sentiment or part of the elements of grassroots organizing. You know,
Right.
um,
Right.
grassroots organizing is basically organizing that's centered around the people in the community and the resources they have in the community, and bringing it all together so that they can focus on one particular task. Usually, it's a lot of people identify it specifically with like political organizing, but it doesn't have to just be political
Not
stuff.
always that. Yeah.
It could be economic stuff, it could be health stuff, it could be all these different things. But
It can be a safe after school program for kids.
right, right,
Yeah.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. The key about grassroots organizing is that it's um, it's kind of like the opposite to a lot of organizing that a lot of people are used to, which is a lot of top down kind of organizing.
Right.
One
Right.
person who's like a leader or like a charismatic kind of person, and that person
Is
is
in
kind of like
charge. Right.
in charge of everything. And that's not what grassroots organizing is. Yet a lot of people, in my experience, a lot of those type of people try to come into grassroots organizing and try to utilize that particular technique in
Right.
grassroots organizing because they see the benefits in terms of having the backing of the people,
Hmm.
but they on some other level, they, for lack of a better term, they just weak and wicked, and they kind of just want a whole bunch of followers.
Right. Yeah. It's not about leading, because grassroots organizing is literally, the same way all the grass is creating roots that connect and go deep. It's
Right.
connection with people. There should not. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that there cannot be like a face that does the talking, because you can be very involved with grassroots organizing and great at organizing and mobilizing people and not comfortable speaking. Right. So it's not that there cannot be a face, but there is not necessarily a leader in good grassroots organizing. It literally is like community coming together and agreeing to do something, and work through whatever differences or obstacles may come up as a group. There is not one person that we're going to default to, like, what do you say we do? It requires community coming together, and it requires patience, because I think what's great about grassroots organizing is it's always about the long-term goal. It's not about, somebody coming in with a bunch of power and money and saying, fix this, and it's done. And then we deal with the consequences or the changes, or, that we need to adjust to later. It is about the long-term vision and starting with what you have and building and continuing to build, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what, successful grassroots organizing does. It is long-term change, long-term accomplishment, things that, you're changing structures of things sometimes, right? And that requires a lot of patience and a lot of hard work and a lot of time, commitment, loyalty, right? Dedication to whatever the cause is. Even if it is as simple as like running a good after school program for kids. It's like, it's hard to just like walk into the school or go to people's homes and be like, hey, give me your kids after school. Start small. You might start with 1 or 2 kids. You might start with your own kids and slowly build with other kids in the neighborhood. And then you extend to kids in the surroundings, in your school district, and then to other school districts, and it becomes a thing. Mm-hmm. But it takes patience, and it takes commitment and dedication, which is what money and power misses, right? Like when you have money and power, you just get to show up and do what the fuck you want to do. And people just kind of have to adjust to whatever it is. When it's grassroots organizing, it is everybody coming together, and there is slow build up. Yeah.
And it's work, like you said there's work. Like, so like you can't be calling yourself a leader of a grassroots, movement or organization, and your hands ain't dirty. If your hands ain't dirty, then you're there for a different
filthy
reason. You're there for a photo op. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're there for your own particular, your own particular interests. But grassroots really means like you got to get down in the dirt, get dirty, and like you said, like the results aren't necessarily going to pop up overnight. There's a type of
Yes.
commitment, but that commitment comes when you identify with the community. Like you know
Right.
that the community is going to be there in the years to come, right? So
Yes.
like you have that kind of vision for how you want the community to be in the years to come, and so that's the kind of investment that you're willing to put in, which is why it's challenging, I should say, and also problematic many times when people outside of a community come into
Yes.
a community to organize grassroots organizing.
Yes.
It can be done. It can be done effectively, but there has to be certain things in place. Like it takes a
If
certain
you're coming in to take a back seat, if you're
right,
coming from yes, if you're literally coming just to support and not try to micromanage or control or take ownership of, then
right,
yes. If you're I mean, if you're, it's the same. This is very similar to what I was talking about as far as what being an ally is on my live last week. It's like, you know, we witnessed, we experienced, we've all now lived through an obvious racially motivated attack against Asian Americans. So you have the Asian American Pacific Islander community, and we talk so often about what being an ally is, and how that pertains to white people and what we expect white people, how they can be involved in this movement and how they can support us without taking, but it's like, that is also necessary, you know, for Black people, for Latinx people. When something happens in the Asian community, it is our responsibility. It's not our fight, even though it's our fight. It is our responsibility to amplify the voices of Asian American and Pacific Islander people. Like, what do you need from us? Where do we go? Where do we stand? What do we say? You tell me, and we'll do it. And so it's similar to grassroots. It's like, if you're not a part of this community directly, it doesn't matter how much you may relate, how much you may care, how sincere your feelings are, what your similar experiences are. That is not your community. And if you want to help, your job is to stand in the background and be ready to take orders. They will deploy you in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you go there and do this, and you need to be willing to do that. That's how you help. You can't show up and be like, man, I got plenty of experience in this, just take it from me. It's not fair. It's not effective.
And the thing is that you can have that plenty of experience, right? But like you said, the marching orders are still given by the community.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So when you go in that community, you'd be like, yo, this is my resume. This is what my skill set is. Boom, 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 boom. Where am I effective at? You know what I'm saying? That's how you move when you go in. Instead of, I got so much, you know, experience. Let me do this.
Right.
Let me take, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how you move in grassroots organization.
No. Well, and if you show up with that resume and they say you can sit back here until we need you, then you sit back there until they need you. You accept that. Exactly. Which is the hard part, I think, for people. For me, I know it is for me. I'm terrible at that.
They're like, no, you need to sit back here and watch the kids while we do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we need you to run to the store and get some napkins. Like,
and if you're an ally, you'll do that graciously and gratefully. You will not be like, nah, man, I came to be on the front lines. I came to say this. I want to talk to them. Let me write that. No. If all they need from you is napkins, then you get the fucking napkins, and you're grateful that they included you, and you wait until they ask you to do something else. It literally is that simple and that complicated at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It is hard.
And that's my experience in terms of a lot of grassroots organizing, in terms of realizing, making myself a listener in terms of what is needed in that moment, but also at the same time letting people know what my skill set is, you know, in a way that's not trying to, you know, overshadow anybody or things like that. Because that's the other thing that happens with a lot of grassroots organizing, is that there's not a proper assessment of the skill sets of everybody involved. And that pretty much is the basic beginning of grassroots organizing, which is like, who are you? What's your skills?
Yes. Right. Where can we use you?
Right. And once we have that list, then we're like, okay, now we can move from here. The funny thing also about grassroots organizing that a lot of people don't know about historically is that the current position of the Republican Party, where it is right now in politics, is a direct result of grassroots organizing that they did in the late 70s and early 80s.
Fair.
They got beat down basically after the civil rights era. you know, the late 60s, early 70s, they got beat down. Nobody was trying
Right.
to get in front of the Republicans. They're like, listen, this is the way we're moving. What they
Yeah.
did was they went to those rural communities, rural white communities,
Yeah.
and they started doing their whole focusing on, you know, abortion is murder, focusing on all these like buzz topics, these hot button
Right.
topics to people,
Right.
and started from the grassroots and
Wow.
organizing.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of these rural areas right now are such strong hotbeds for
Right.
QAnon or Trumpism and all this kind of stuff. It's
Right.
because they're the result of grassroots work that was put in by the Republican Party. And
I never thought
ironically,
about that.
what happened is the Democrats, even though traditionally that was pretty much a Democrat tool, they
Yeah.
lost sight of that and totally forgot about that. And they're all really about the shiny nickel right now, the shiny penny.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this person is, you know, instead of like,
Yeah.
you know, getting down in the trenches, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
My
Right.
uncle was like, oh, like they have hot sauce in their bag. Oh, they must know. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind of moves that they started moving with, you know. Or
Right.
the same thing even with Biden, like, okay, you know, starting referencing only like, you know, hip hop people, you know, or
Yeah.
as political
Right.
experts. Meanwhile, the Black community
Right.
got mad political experts and stuff and everything, but you don't reference them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
this is all because they moved away from this grassroots organizing. But
Right.
the left, for lack of a better term, the left, you know, has embraced that in many ways. And like I said when I was talking to you, that mutual aid societies are a direct result of grassroots organizing.
Fair. Yeah.
You know,
Weird that I've never thought about that. That's true. Yeah. It literally is. That's exactly what it is. You just you go out and you find people and you create what you need, and then it turns into something bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly.
Why did I not know that?
Well, listen, I think sometimes just be popping in my head too, but yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. And
duh.
so mutual aid, grassroots organizing, mutual aid has literally been, you know, the boat that has kept many people afloat during this pandemic time, during this racial uprising time, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it also shows us how effective that can be to address specific issues.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who are anti-government, but they're not pro freaking grassroots organizing. So you
also, right. Like, so what do we do then?
Yeah. Right. Well, then that gets into that hyper individuality thing I talked about in terms of, which is like the subset of white racism, white supremacy, white fragility, which is like, I'm gonna do it on my own. You know, I can do it on my own. The reality is none of them do it on their own.
They don't.
None of them.
It's true. Right. Yeah, that's not a real thing. It's not possible.
It never was. And the thing is that, you know, once that talk that happens again in terms of just like, you know, Black, Indigenous people of color live off the government, but white people don't live off the government. Like, that is still a narrative for people, which blows my mind because, like I said before, there's so many stages in terms of how the government has helped push white people forward. Everything from, you know, redlining to particular loans, welfare, you know what I'm saying?
All of it. Yeah.
All this stuff,
well, I mean, and not even take into consideration how much money the government gives to businesses in the form of like subsidies, tax breaks. It's like that they're giving you money. They don't call it welfare, but it's the same fucking concept. It's just going to a corporation, a business, instead of an individual person. So I always get confused when people talk about that. It's like, businesses money all the time. They bail them out of shit all the time. How is that not government assistance? How is that not a form of welfare? Like, it's weird to me.
It is weird, but it's once again, it's the narrative is from that particular direction. The narrative isn't so much about this is, you know, not what people can or cannot do. The narrative is more so that, you know, it's wrong for you to do that, but if I do it, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? That's really, because
there's a different name when I do it. I don't call it welfare. I call it a tax break or whatever. So it's okay when I do it. It's like, no, bitch. Like, you're taking money from the government, so enjoy that.
Right.
And literally,
it's politicians too. Like politicians, I swear, there's always a politician who, is so against, queer
Whatever
folks
it
and
is.
everything,
Right, right, right.
and then all of a sudden, he's
Tapping toes
guaranteed
in the bathroom, and it's
always
all over the news.
he's on Grinder. You know what I'm saying? So it's always that, or the same ones. And this has always been the same thing, even in the 50s and 60s when abortion wasn't legal. And you had politicians pushing real, real hard against it.
Right.
They were sending their mistresses down to Mexico to get abortions.
Yippers.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't want to go fully,
right.
Direction.
That's another episode, friends.
always another episode. Always 5 episodes in every episode.
Right? Yeah.
That might have to be our tagline: 5 episodes in every episode.
Can we even talk about that? Probably.
But over the years, in terms of my grassroots organizing that I've been involved in,
so much.
Yeah. Much,
yeah.
High school, basically.
Right.
They are by far the most sustainable forms of organizing that I've worked with. You know what I'm saying? They also have redundancies built in them that protect them on certain levels that other type of organizing doesn't have said protection. So for instance, I had a youth program at one point that I ran. It was an LLC, whatever. But it was very dependent on grants.
Right.
From grants in terms of government grants and things of that nature. When the political landscape shifted at that time it was shifting from Clinton to the Bushes. Those grants dried up. They weren't available anymore.
Right.
But because of the structure of the LLC, it couldn't survive.
Yeah.
It couldn't survive because it was still dependent on that outside type of organizing structure. Whereas if you have like a program that's organized on the grassroots level, it's not dependent on the ups and downs of the federal government.
Right.
The people, and the people figure out ways for things to sustain themselves,
to keep it going.
Right. And that's something when people get into things like that. A lot of people, when they want to do good in the community, they're like, "Yo, I want to set up a nonprofit LLC or LLC." I'm like,
right.
Nah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Many times, also setting up those nonprofits or whatever. Sometimes you need to set up a for-profit.
Right. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Profit, please.
Right. You need to set up a way for something to be self-sustainable. Because when you set up something to be nonprofit, many times you set that to deal with the whims and stuff of others. If you're dealing with something that is product-based or on that level, then it has built within it the means to sustain itself.
Right.
Not either one. That's pretty much my experience.
There's just a difference. Right. Significant difference, and depending on what you're trying to do and how far you want it to go.
And
for sure.
You right now, you jumping into grassroots organizing.
I'm getting into a lot of things.
You literally are jumping. You're like, is there water at the end of this thing? I don't know.
I hope so, because head first too. So let's just hope there's something down there. It really, what's funny about it too is I think the closest thing that I have been involved in as far as like real grassroots organizing, I've definitely always had a mouth, and I've definitely always like said what I needed to say and made the moves that I had the ability to move. But being mixed, raised by my white family in white Southern Oregon, there was not, literally, like, the only other people of color around me growing up out here in the 80s and 90s were immigrants. We got a lot of fields. There's a lot of farming out here. And so all of my friends were of the Latinx community. And that was it. And because of the situation that their parents were in, there was not a lot of organizing. People were not rocking the boat out here. It was just like, look, they want to make their money. They want to take care of their family. Want to be left the fuck alone. And I understood it when I was a kid, whatever. And as I've gotten older, but as more Black and brown people have like become courageous enough to come to Southern Oregon and stay in Southern Oregon, there's more to work off. So I had the opportunity to be a part of the BIPOC sanctuary that Kokai Sakari has started out here. And through my association with them, like really just like being involved in the group conversations and, you know, that is grassroots for us at this point, because it's like, yo, anytime my car broke down, boom, somebody is like, I got this, I'm out of fucking food. Can somebody help me? Yep, we got this, and this. I need help moving. You literally yesterday when I was driving home, I was driving down the freeway right outside the Grapevine, and I saw a shit ton of cop cars. There's like 4 or 5 cop cars, lights all on, clustered on the side of the road. And my first thought, you know, as I'm driving with my U-Haul and my kids and doing whatever it is I do on the road, which is not always drive the speed limit. My first thought was, whoo, better him than me, because I do not want to get pulled over right now, right? Then as I get closer to it, I see one black kid. He could not have been more than 20, 22 years old, terrified, just sitting there looking around, like pointing at stuff, surrounded by like 5, 6 cops. I'm on the freeway and like my heart dropped. I don't know what to do. I'm out of state. I can't just like pull over on the freeway with the U-Haul and stop and make my presence known. I literally just went to the group chat and Grassroots Organizing. That's the closest thing I could think of. Like, these are the people that I can go to, and I did. And they got aligned. They looked up community pages. They reached out to who they could, because that was all that we could do in that moment. So for me, like, my grassroots organizing started there. And from there, I started getting jobs with people that like turned into more opportunities to do grassroots organizing. So I am kind of like diving in. But also it's like I've been practicing my dive for many, many years. I just haven't had a pool to go into until recently. So we'll see. You got the radio show. I've been working with So Black. I do the radio show in the mornings. But I honestly feel like as far as like hands-on getting in there, like you were saying, like your hands got to be dirty. I'm working more towards that. I'm working more towards that and not just being the mouthpiece, because I'm great at being the mouthpiece. But there has not been a lot of dirt for me to put my hands in, just because of the environment that I have lived in for so long, and that I chose not to leave, because it was very important to me as I became older. It's just like, I'm not gonna fucking leave here. You guys are gonna have to deal with me. Find a way to make you deal with me. And more, because I couldn't move to a bigger city. I could do so many things, and but it was important to me just to be like, I've lived here since I was 5, and I'm not fucking running. Like, I will find a way. Like I said, like, more people have come here and created those opportunities for me, because they did not exist and I did not know how to make them. I was not bold enough and I was not brave enough to like get my hands dirty on my own and start trying to change things here, until more people came to support that. I'm super fucking grateful they did too.
Well, I mean, and that's the key element right there. Like, in terms of grassroots organizing, you need a community, right?
Yes.
You actually need a community. And once you get that community, you then start to deal with essentials. Sometimes people have a lofty idea in terms of what kind of grassroots organizing, the topics and stuff they want to grassroots organize around. When sometimes you got to deal with the essentials. Like, when you have your community, it's like, yo, does everybody have a roof over their head? Is everybody fed? Is everybody safe? Is everybody have, some kind of gainful employment? Those are essential things. And sometimes people go into communities, want to grassroots, for instance, around, let's just use an example in terms of, let's say, a police brutality case, right? You go into a next town, you want to grassroots organize around that. And it's just like, many times people are not part of the community, or they come outside of the community, and you can go back home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So, like,
you don't have to stay.
Yeah, they agitate the area and then they bounce. You know what I'm saying?
And
that's not a good look. So it's important, to make sure that the essential needs of the community is met before you even step into that next level. And it's also important, when you're dealing with grassroots organizing, to make sure that you share in the risk that you're asking others to take. Right.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's easy to overlook too. I think I mean, I feel like that's something that I've instinctually understood, but not a thought that I have ever like formulated, right? To like clearly articulate, like it is important to make sure that you're willing to take on the risks that other people are taking on. That's a really valid point.
Right, and that's why it's important in terms of when you're dealing with allies or accomplices on any level to let
Right,
them know like this is what it's about. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
Like especially if you have a certain degree of privilege. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If you're not using that privilege as a sword and a shield, then get the fuck out of here. I don't need you.
you're in the
You
way.
know, right?
Right,
And that was
right.
one of the most important things I saw during some of the protests that resulted from the racial uprisings last year. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
literally saw, I call them white accomplices, literally put their bodies between, black and brown people and the police. I was like,
Yep.
yeah, that's what I need
That's
you
what.
for. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I don't need your critique.
Unfortunately, like, right, like
Right, right,
it's not fun to use a human shield, but you're way safer than I am.
right,
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. Like, so it's about putting those things in practice, and like you said, playing the position that's needed for that moment.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I don't need you to give, a reassessment or a summary of some book on communism or socialism right now.
Yeah.
Don't need that. Don't need that talk from
Why
you.
does that happen so often? Just you saying it says that you've obviously encountered that as much as
No,
I am. Like, the fuck are you even talking about, bro?
yo,
Stop it.
I've been in places where I've said shut the fuck up.
Because
You
you
know,
have.
because that person is totally not in tune with what is going on. You know, they're totally not in tune. They're not present. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They brought their whole agenda, their whole worldview to a different party, and I'm
That's
like,
what it is. Yeah.
this is not that party. You know what I'm saying? Like
Might
this
be
is
next door, but
right,
what
right.
the fuck?
This is not Occupy Wall Street. Okay, which
Yeah.
dissipated in the air, right? You don't even hear any more about that kind of stuff.
What was that? Yeah, I know. People,
Right.
that was
The whole
so long
Occupy,
ago, too. Yeah.
right. The whole Occupy movement. You don't hear that. You know what I'm saying?
True.
But it's also, like I said, it's very important to stay in tune with those essential elements of grassroots organizing so that you then don't deal with backlash that can come later, which is what we're
Right.
actually seeing now with the Black Lives Matter movement. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Yeah,
Facts.
I have to say
Yes.
it. You know,
Do it.
when Tamir Rice's mother is up there basically saying, "Listen, y'all
Fuck off.
got all this money, and y'all are like being celebrities now. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm
Sean
saying?
King has been called out before. I really want to point
Oh
that
yeah,
out. Like, Black women specifically have been asking us to stop referring to Sean King for everything, and people, as usual, just disregard what Black women have to say and be like, oh, no, but look at this guy. I don't even have personal beef, obviously, with Sean King. And I appreciate the attention that because he has a lot of eyes on him. So it's great that a lot of people are, but it's like, this is not new.
right, right,
This issue of it becoming a celebrity thing and the grassroots no longer being about like helping the people you showed up saying that this organization was to help. Now it's become, like you said, a celebrity thing. We cannot
right,
have that shit. It's so
right, right.
foul.
It's crazy because like there was this response from one of the founders or current leaders of the Black Lives Matter organization, I should say. I don't
Yeah.
say movement, but the organization, and that responded to Tamir Rice's mother, and it was on some crazy shit. She was like,
Really?
well, "Our mother, has basically been co-opted by." I'm like, "Yo, really, really, really?"
She's been co-opted, but you have not.
Yo, I
Okay.
have to find it. I have to send you the article. It blew my mind because I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not the hill to die on. You know
This
what I'm
is
saying? The
not where you want to be right now.
only thing he should have said to her was like, you
Sorry.
know what? I need to
My
listen.
bad.
I need to do better. You know what I'm saying? And all this
And
money needs to be accounted for because when you now for a quote unquote movement are making in the millions of dollars,
yeah, dude.
everyone else has the right to know where all that money is being disseminated and stuff,
Yes.
especially when it's built off of literal black bodies. So like his
Literal.
mother has
Yeah.
every right, like she's like my son's face, and other
Dude.
black mothers' faces, their children are the faces of your movement.
Yes.
Like, we have a right to understand what's going on, and we don't want to see you on no Grammys anymore. Fuck the bullshit.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Watches
saying?
the Grammys. Yes, dude. You know what's interesting too is I've been such a Sean King supporter. I just keep bringing him up specifically because I've had the experience with him. But one of the jobs that I worked for Dancing Hearts Consulting, which is a job that I came through the BIPOC sanctuary. It was a grassroots, and they're like, look, we're hiring Black and brown people. Where are the Black and brown people? They're at the BIPOC sanctuary. So I got this job, and it was there. It literally was there that all my other jobs, all these other opportunities started coming from, right? Like the radio show, the So Black, all of that came directly from working with those people. And it was in that group at work one day where we were talking specifically about grassroots organizing. And this was before the George Floyd. This was before the George Floyd. It's so sad that happened, but it was before what happened to him. But something else was happening. I don't remember, but we were discussing it, and I had mentioned something about Sean King, and I got jumped. I mean, not like aggressively. They were not mad, but two of the Black women specifically were like, nah, not Sean King. And I'm like, what's wrong with Sean King? And they fucking unloaded all these articles, all these statements. And I was like, oh my God, why is he doing this? And it was, and I remember them specifically saying, like, grassroots organizing is for the people.
Right.
That's it. That's not what's happening currently. You know what I mean? And that was the first time it was kind of put in my face that, yeah, it can turn into something else. If you start to move away from those roots, if you start to get caught up in the attention that you're getting, because it's very easy. Like I said, it makes sense that somebody would have to be like the face or the spokesperson. Some of us are just better speaking than others. We are easier, and maybe that's where it starts. But just because you are the face of something does not mean that it's about you, that it's yours anymore. It still has to stay a focus on the community and what is best for all of us. And if people within your community that you are organizing for are coming to you and say, you're organizing wrong, you're mobilizing wrong, this is not what we want anymore, you don't, like you said, get to be like, man, you've been co-opted, you don't know what you're talking about. You got to step back and be like, yo, I came here to help you and I'm not helping you. My bad. How do we fix this? Very simple.
And this is such an ethic of specifically, quote unquote, West African, well, probably different parts of Africa too, but I'm familiar with the West African ethic in terms of even the person who's quote unquote is in power is accountable to the people.
Right.
So
okay. Right.
You have many cases where there were kings or chiefs or different setups of organizing in West Africa where they could be destroyed by the town griot, who he would basically come through and crack jokes about you, and destroy you like verbally, you know what I'm saying? So this is all part of the lineage of like hip hop and diss tracks and everything else. But you know what I'm saying? Like he had that authority and he had that power, and no king and no chief wanted to be that dude who was getting like chewed out by the griot on the jelly, so
what part?
But it's all about accountability. So when you set yourself up in terms of a cult of personality where you are not accountable to the people, that ain't no Black shit. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that. There's always been accountability. So it's important because we see right now there's a lot of cults of personality on every side. You know what I'm saying? Dudes are over there worshiping a fucking golden idol of Trump. Well,
I mean,
it's crazy, yo. It's like, oh, we remember the Second Amendment, but we don't remember the Second Commandment in the Bible. Like these dudes, but the same thing can happen in these grassroots nonprofit, seeming like they're working for the people kind of thing in terms of when you really are these cults of personality. And it's important, like you said, to make sure that you're accountable to the people and make sure that you set up ways that people like that can't take the bag and run.
Yeah. And to maintain humility, because it's like, we're all people. It's like, obviously I'm not Republican, but also I'm kind of Democrat by default because I don't have a better option at this point. I don't want to see anybody, black, white, brown, whatever, deal with any kind of undeserved or unearned disrespect or hurt, right?
Right.
But that is, but the way to keep that in check is to remember that no matter what side you're on or how right your intentions may be, you're still human and you're going to fuck up, and you have to be open to being called out. It happens to me all the time. You know me intimate, like we know each other. So you know that my mouth can be foul and inappropriate. And when I have been so ignited, I say things that I am horrified by. And I will step back and be like, I really fucking don't like you. I don't care. Right. But also, like, I would never, I don't talk that way. I lost myself. And it takes a lot to remember to be like, I was wrong, no matter how right my intention was or the cause that I am working for is. I still don't have a right to stoop to those places and say and do those things. That is not good for any of us. Not good for me personally. It's not good for my fucking soul. You know what I mean? Right. But it does undermine the group. And so until you're willing to accept yourself as a part of the group and be like, yo, I got to apologize because I just like, it hurts us. It hurts us when we lose out of that and we don't take accountability. And you just won't get very far. And I feel like that's probably another reason that I have been hesitant to be like super involved in a lot of organizations, because it's like, yo, my mouth can be a liability. That's the honest to God truth. To be honest, literally when people have hired me, when people have offered to work with me, I'm like, look, so here's some screenshots of things that Lisa has said on Facebook, and like, here's a background on stuff. You know what I mean? Because if I'm a liability because I don't, then I cannot be a part of your group. I'm not willing to undermine what you are working for and what you're doing. Which is why I like podcasts and things like this. It's just like, I can get in here because I'm allowed, but I do, it's a learning curve for me. I really do need to learn. I'm great at being accountable if you're going to call me out, but being accountable after the fact does not always fix the damage that you cause when you're not thinking ahead of time. And that's what matters, right? In grassroots organizing too. Anytime that you are working with or for this particular cause, whatever it is, you have to remember that you are a part of a community. It's not about you. So you can be as angry, you can be as incited as you want to be. You still got to watch your mouth and how you move if the organization, if the group, if the community is going to continue to prosper, right? It can take just one of those, and it can be super difficult, but it is about accountability, and that's crazy hard for so many people.
Well, you need to, you have to be well enough, have enough self-awareness. Like you said, you have enough self-awareness to know that Lisa can get buck wild. I know this. I'm like, okay, Lisa gonna get buck wild. All right.
Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Listen, I have a friend. Tell the short story on here. She probably not going to the podcast, but she was my friend growing up. She was a dancer also, like hip hop house dancer. We would always be out places to practice dancing and stuff. But she was the type of woman that, we were in the club one time and one of our friends got kicked out, and the bouncer, she went up to the bouncer and started screaming on the bouncer. And I'm like, in my head,
it wasn't me, but it could have been.
It could have been.
That was not me.
In my head, I'm like, damn, now I got to go fight.
Now I got to fight. Exactly. Boys tell me that all the time. They're like,
yeah, this is her. And the funny thing is, we both got thrown out the club. But the funny thing is that we walked around the front, and it turned out that the head bouncer was one of my boys from back in the day.
Nice. Okay, good.
He let us back in. And those other bouncers were mad. But she's the type of person who I know, it's just like, okay, there's a possibility that I'm gonna have to fight.
Yeah.
But like so it's important to have that self-awareness about yourself. But it's also like any person, it's important for them to have someone that can call them on their shit.
That's what you are for me. Thanks, ALife. You're not the only one. But at this point in my life, you are the longest standing for sure. I always think, I'm like, I'm going to go to ALife. And if he tells me I need to chill the fuck out, I'm going to chill the fuck out. If he says he got bail money, then we're going for it. We're just going to see what happens.
Yeah, let's just put it out there that I'm not always, I will never always be the person to always say chill out. Sometimes it's like,
this is true.
You'll get them.
This is true. Yeah. But I know if you say that, you're sincere.
Right. But that's important.
And I'm never afraid. You call me out. You will tell me if I'm being foul. And I love that about you.
I thank you.
Side note, sorry about that, but it's true. So thank you. Yeah.
But this gets back to let's bring it back full circle because we're about getting out of time. But the grassroots thing is important, like you said. Like it's one of the key things I took away from what you said was that you're accountable to the community. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of how we view grass, right? We don't literally, like, you really have to do some kind of work in your head to like start to identify grass as like the blade of grass. Generally, when we refer to grass, we're referring to like the field of grass or whatever. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So we're referring to the community, you know. So like you said, it's important to always understand you're accountable to the community.
Yes. You know what's interesting about that, the grassroots and the accountable to the community, is I don't remember if it was one of your books or just a post that either you or Supreme made, but I remember the discussion about grass. The smell of cut grass is actually a survival mechanism. That smell that grass releases when it's cut is a signal to other grass. And it's not like grass can move or go anywhere. I'm not really sure like why that survives, but it is. So it's like being accountable to that community. When one blade of grass goes down, it releases a signal to be like, yo, community, this is what's happening to us. It's interesting that you said that because it just made me, I don't remember if it was in one of your books or if it was just a post, but I remember having that conversation specifically and being like, damn, that's interesting. It's like,
it's the same thing with the forest, you know, like the trees and stuff in the forest. They have a subterranean root system and communication.
Oh, right.
By which their communication with others doing various different, you know, chemical signals and things like that. Right. So it's like, you know, even though visually you'll see something that looks like it's an individual, like a tree and stuff, it's still connected to a community. And that's how we have to, when you do grassroots organizing, that's how you really, really need to envision yourself. Like, even though you envision yourself as the individual and by yourself, it's like you're a part of a community. So it's important to stay in tune with that community and play your position in that community. You know what I'm saying? You know, your position might change, you know, going depending on what project you're working at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
And you have to be, you know, sometimes you might be the captain, sometimes you might be the lieutenant, sometimes you might be the private soldier. You have to be able to, the master is able to figure out which position you're supposed to be in and play that position. You know
right.
Like I've seen, it's crazy because like I've seen my parents do that at various different times, you know, especially with church functions. You know, it's funny, like my father was like the big minister dude. But if he was like, yo, we need some more water, he would get up and get in the car and go get some water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it had to be
with
done.
Gratitude.
Right.
Like,
they didn't need
let me do it.
The pulpit speaking. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not what's needed at that moment. You know, but now grassroots organizing is where it's at. Mutual aid is where it's at, and clearly these are more things that we need to and will invest in the future, you know, for this post-Rona period, because we're already seeing that the government is fucking up. You know what I'm saying? We're already seeing that the government is fucking up. I mean, I don't want to go over our time, but those fucktards in Georgia, yo, really?
I can't.
Yeah, I can't. That's another discussion. But like, yo, really? Like, y'all up there making it a crime to give people
please God help.
You know what I'm saying? Who are in line to vote? Really? You know, so we know.
You have to wonder why they care so much, why it matters to them so much that people are willing to help other people on a community one-to-one level.
Right.
And it's because they will lose power. The more that communities are willing to come together and create grassroots, do what they need for their area, we are no longer dependent on the government. These are just that we can do it for ourselves.
Right. And the
thing is, can't hand out water. Ugh.
Right. Like, and the thing is, I'm not anti-government, you know, but what
we need structure.
what I am anti is that even once we create those mutual aid and grassroots organization, we're still paying taxes, right? And my
Word.
taxes, like that becomes even more problematic. Say we create all these structures that work, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the money that was supposed to go to those organizations that is going in their pockets.
Yes, exactly.
And I
Yes.
don't, I'm not for that either. I'm like, yeah,
Mm,
nah. If you're not putting the tax money where it's supposed to be, it still don't
right.
need to be in your fucking pockets because that's what happens. And you turn out, you have fucking millionaires voting against, a livable wage.
Right.
You know what I'm
Fucking
saying?
every time. Yeah,
You
dude.
know,
It's the worst.
but we reaching our point.
Yeah, we are.
But yeah, go ahead, bring it.
I was just going to say we were talking about implementing an idea where we put out, right, a couple of the topics that we have, because we have like a laundry list of things we would like to run our mouths to you guys about.
Daily.
Yeah, because, we came here to talk about grassroots organizing, and in that conversation, 3 other things have already come up that I'm like, oh, add that to the list. Oh my God, we need a show for that. So we were thinking about putting out a few of the things that we have on our list at the end of our show and allowing our community to let us know what they would like us to talk about the next time we come here. So we have this 3 of them. You want me to choose 3 for people to do? Okay.
Yeah.
This is gonna be so fun. Okay, so this was suggested to us during Black History Month, actually. Garrett joined one of our lives and had mentioned, discussing how do you deal with Black people, and we'll open it up to like Black, brown, and the BIPOC community. How do you deal with people in the BIPOC community derailing progress for the BIPOC community? I mean, we address a lot like how we deal with white people, but right? Like, what do you do when it happens within your community? So we can talk about the derailing by BIPOC people of BIPOC people. That's one. What's another one that I really like? Okay. Interracial relationships. This is one that I like. I'm a product of an interracial relationship and an interracial relationship. So this is a fun topic for me. That is so layered. So there's another option. And then number 3, let's do the legalization of marijuana and how fucking crazy and unfair that is to all the Black and brown people that are in jail for joints.
Yes.
Right? While like white people are just like, I opened a dispensary and made millions off weed today. And Black people are just like sitting in jail like, that's dope, because I was just trying to smoke a joint to survive my life in the fucking disparaging, do you know what I mean? Crazy shit. So let's do that. Those are our 3 topics. Let us know if there is one that and also if you have suggestions for topics, we'll add it to the list. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. So if you have suggestions, do you want us to talk about BIPOC derailing within the BIPOC community? Do you want to talk about interracial relationships and like the layers within and how you handle that, especially in such a like racially tense time in our culture? Or do you want us to talk about the legalization of weed and how like crazy unfair that is to not fix that for people who are arrested? So those are our 3 topics.
Yeah, and you can hit us on any of our platforms because we still work it out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
To let us know. But yeah, no, that's solid. That's what's up.
Those will be fun. Any of those, I will be so excited to talk about.
Of course. It's gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna be thank y'all for rocking with us.
Yeah, so good to be here. I'm glad we made it this week. We will be back in 2 weeks. Let me check my calendar because today is the 26th, but we're not coming back on the 26th. We will be back on Wednesday the 7th.
Yes.
Wednesday, April 7th at 11:11. We'll be going live from Facebook. Of course, it'll be loaded to all the other platforms as soon as we can afterwards. But April 7th, what do you want to hear us talk about April 7th? Even if you don't care what we talk about, come back and join us on April 7th at 11:11. And between now and then, get your hands dirty in some grassroots organizing. Find something to be a part of, right?
Yes.
Yay!
All right, y'all.
Yeah, be well. We'll catch you in a couple weeks.
Definitely. All right. Peace. Okay, it's off of Facebook.
Yes. Okay, I stopped the live stream.
Okay.
That was not terrible.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. So that's good. That's good.